Okay, I've been working on this Masters of the Universe retrospective for far too long, so let's end this before something happens. Hopefully nothing happens. So after the lackluster response the New Adventures of He-Man got, Masters of the Universe went dormant for a little while. Though that might be for the best, since the 90s was already filled to the brim with muscle-bound freaks. However, in the year 2000, there was a small line of re-releases of the original Masters of the Universe figures, which went over well with fans, and that told Mattel that it might be time for He-Man to return. And return he did with a brand new 2-season, 39-episode series that originally aired on Cartoon Network between August of 2002 and January of 2004, as well as a line of action figures that are really cool and I feel are very underappreciated. Unlike New Adventures, this show was a full-on reboot of the Filmation cartoon and is still quite beloved to this day. But how well does it hold up? Well, let's find out and finally end this Masters of the Universe retrospective before something happens. So for the first time outside the comics, we actually get some backstory and lore. The evil tyrant Skeletor assaults the Hall of Wisdom, but is stopped by Randor and the Masters of the Universe. During the battle, he gets acid splashed in his face and is forced to retreat. The evil forces get trapped behind a barrier on the other side of the planet, and Randor is declared King of Eternia. Years pass, and Keldor's forces breach the wall and attack. Then he reveals himself to Randor as Skeletor. Meanwhile, the sorceress calls Man-at-Arms to bring Prince Adam to Castle Grayskull, where he takes up the sword and becomes He-Man and fight the forces of evil. So like I said, this is essentially a reboot of the Filmation cartoon, just way more developed and with upgraded animation. You know, like a normal show. But the show actually does have connections to New Adventures as well, because some of the voice actors return. Gary Chalk, who was the voice of Adam and He-Man, is now the voice of Man-at-Arms. As much as I thought he was okay in New Adventures, I feel this role fits him a lot better.
He is known as He-Man. The sorceress told me of him.
Another one to return was Scott McNeil. I didn't mention him in my previous review, but he voiced several characters in New Adventures, and he does the same for this show.
That guy is... I say we charge him!
I say we all take an oath of loyalty right now to protect the secret of Castle Grayskull.
It's not vermin, Evelyn. It's an ecto-eel.
My people are engaged in a trade dispute with the residents of Andrinos, who've blockaded our eastern skyways.
Also, I don't know why he voiced Stratos to sound like Sean Connery, but it weirdly works.
Punch the keys, for God's sake! You're the man now, dog.
This time around, Adam and He-Man are voiced by Cam Clark.
Come on, guys, lighten up. All this battle training is just fun and games.
And I am He-Man, defender of Eternia.
Yeah, that's right. Leonardo from the original Ninja Turtles show is now He-Man. This was practically a prophecy because eventually they made crossover action figures. If these came out when I was a kid, I would have lost my mind. I also gotta give credit to Brian Dobson, who voices Skeletor, because he actually tries to mimic Alan Oppenheimer's voice.
Have you the faintest inkling to whom you speak? I am Skeletor, Overlord of Evil!
Well, you know what they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Lisa Ann Bailey voices Teela and brings some much-needed energy and personality to the character.
We've got to protect the village, but without hurting the beast. The crystal is activated, the creature could blow sky high, and my father along with it!
And Kathleen Barr does the same for Evelyn, without the screechy voice.
A change is at hand. May this wall turn to dust. Its utter destruction is an absolute must!
That's one of the things that stands out about this show. The surprising amount of depth they gave some of the characters. The Filmation cartoon touched on that a little bit, but it was never meant to be the focus. But here, they expand upon a lot of the characters, and Evelyn is a great example. In Filmation, she had aspirations of overthrowing Skeletor and ended up helping the good guys on occasion. Since then, the character has had some ambiguity to her alliances. In the show, we meet her father, the Faceless One, who believes she's not evil, and she even shows that a few times. At one point, she betrays Skeletor, and He-Man suggests that she switches sides.
Maybe I could change my ways. Live a life of virtue and light. Fight evil. Protect the innocent.
Or not. Speaking of He-Man, they toned him down a little bit. Not his abilities, but a lot of Adam's rashness and inexperience tends to come through. We sometimes see him getting headstrong and even making mistakes. It's nice to see He-Man not being the simple solution to every problem.
Thank you, He-Man. So, how should we get back up?
I hadn't planned that far ahead.
And overall, the world seems more developed. We see many more races and species, all with their own societies. It makes Eternia feel alive and not a mostly barren wasteland like it seems to be in Filmation. And unlike Filmation, we get more varied and unique designs for the characters. I personally like how some of Skeletor's minions look bigger and more monstrous. Even the Masters got some much needed redesigns. Filmation used templates for most of the characters, but now they have unique body types and stand out more. I like how they made Ram Man huge, which makes more sense than him being tiny. I also like the redesign for the Sorceress. The bird look might be more iconic, but they gave her an Egyptian theme, and it really works. They also gave a lot of focus to characters that desperately needed it. Cyclone wasn't in the Filmation cartoon much, but is definitely a fan favorite. When they meet him, they establish he might be the last of his kind, but is given new purpose by helping the Masters. Still spins, though.
Spin!
You know, at this point, I think I owe Vinesauce some royalties. I also like how he forms a friendship with Roboto, who is another fan favorite character that wasn't given a lot of focus in Filmation, but thankfully we get a lot more of him here. Even well-known villains got backstories like Too Bad. They were rival bounty hunters that Skeletor fused together because they couldn't cooperate. Stinkor is another favorite character, but he never appeared in the Filmation cartoon. Here they actually give him an origin story. He originally came from a race of little furry dudes, and you know, he was kinda cute before the accident that gave him his powers.
What's this device for, anyhow?
It's designed to remove your stink.
I don't stink! Tell him, merman!
You do have a rather distinctive aroma.
Well gee, who would have thought a character called Beastman would smell bad? Anyway, Oedipus, yes that's his real name, messes up Triclops' work and gets his stink power, which in theory is pretty funny, but it arguably makes him one of the more powerful bad guys. Even Skeletor can't handle the stench, and he doesn't even have a nose.
Now, back downstairs, Stinker. Quickly.
And now here's Skeletor laughing at a fart. So while the Filmation cartoon wasn't the original story of He-Man, it did popularize the series and influenced all future adaptations. So we see many direct references to the original animated series. They even bring back characters that were exclusive to the Filmation series, like Evil Seed, who is every bit of a threat as he was originally, though he was given a redesign and is a lot more manic. I also like that they made him an adversary of Mossman, which makes perfect sense. But the most surprising character to come back was Count Marzo. In Filmation, he was just some creep that got his kicks by making kids do bad things. But here, he got a hell of an upgrade. They made him a sorcerer whose power rivals Evil Lyn and even gives He-Man plenty of trouble. Now that is how you reboot a character. It's a shame they didn't bring back more characters. I think Granomir would have been great in this show. Fortunately, he was brought back for the Revolution series and was done very well there. But they didn't bring back Plundor, you know, the best character from the Filmation cartoon. Really dropped the ball there, guys. Would have turned this check minus show into a check plus. There's even some new characters added to the canon, like Decker, who is the mentor of Man-at-Arms and Randor. He seemed cool. Too bad he was only in one episode.
You ever meet King Randor?
Used to call him Randy back when he was a cadet. He and Duncan were my favorites.
So while it was nice seeing new characters and obscure characters come back, the improvement to the existing characters was the best and most necessary part. The character that I thought was most improved was Randor. He started out as a soldier and did his fair share of fighting. So he didn't start out as a king, he was made a king but never saw himself fit for the role. When he's tasked with uniting the races of Eternia against Skeletor, he questions his own ability, especially since some of them don't get along very well. He was also involved in a lot of battles and is kind of a badass. This is easily the best version of this character. Though for me, the biggest improvements was to Adam. I mentioned in previous videos about how I wanted to see more of him do stuff instead of just He-Man, and thankfully we get a lot of that here. Sure, he still has his immature, goofy side, but he's proven himself to be capable many times. He's even bested Teela a few times.
All right, I yield.
And the winner is Adam!
One of the more shocking things in this show was the appearance of the Horde. This led people, including myself, to believe that at some point we were going to see She-Ra. Unfortunately, She-Ra never showed up. Supposedly it's because of the legal problems surrounding the character that I mentioned in previous reviews, which is unfortunate. I'm sure fans would have loved to have seen her again. Though what most people don't realize is the Horde was originally adversaries of He-Man, but they were kind of borrowed for She-Ra and have since been associated with her. In this show, they're seen in Eternia's past where they face King Grayskull himself in his first animated appearance. He ends up defeating them, but at the cost of his own life, which leads to the origins of the power of Grayskull. They also build up Hordak as a powerful and legit threat and establish that he was the one who saves Keldor and turned him into Skeletor. In a pretty awesome sequence. There was indication that he would make a return, but even Skeletor knows that that's bad. Another surprising addition to the show was the Snakemen, who were big antagonists later in the original toy line. Some of them showed up in the Filmation cartoons, but they were just more henchmen for the main villains. In the show, they're another big threat to everyone, even Skeletor. And the Snakemen also introduce us to Zodak. Zodak is a character I didn't talk about when I reviewed the Filmation cartoon, because he was barely in it, but he's definitely another fan favorite. He's a galactic enforcer, which I guess is like the Green Lanterns of this universe, with many other members. This was even implied in the Filmation cartoon. Though the character himself seems to be inspired by the DC character Metron, right down to the flying chair. In this show, he's a powerful mystic whose brother was killed by the Snakemen's leader, King Hiss, so he has a grudge against the Snakemen and will go to great lengths to try and stop them, even if it means going against He-Man.
But taking on the Snakemen alone is not only folly, it puts all Eternia in jeopardy.
My brother, my battle, my vengeance. Now step aside or face the consequences.
Zodak here is voiced by Christopher Judge, who's best known for Stargate SG-1, and would later go on to be the voice of Kratos in the God of War games.
By the elders!
So they certainly drew a lot from the Filmation cartoon, but maybe they drew a little too much because they brought back the PSA segments. Yep, at the end of each episode, there was a brief segment where one of the characters gives you a lesson about something. Why? Because Filmation did it, I guess. This was 2002! There was no need for this! Like seriously, who was doing PSA segments after the year 2000? And as usual, they were sped through, forced, and even a little weird.
Spiders are an important part of nature and do many good things for the environment, but there are a few spiders that bite. So unless a parent or teacher says it's alright, it's best not to get too near to them.
Yes, if you have any questions about spiders, be sure to ask your math teacher. You know, you don't have to copy everything the thing you're rebooting did. That's my PSA. But one of the things that carried over is what people loved most about the Filmation cartoon, and that's the silliness. Yes, despite the improvements, there was still plenty of ridiculousness. Orko had plenty of silly moments, though he was toned down compared to his Filmation counterpart and was way more likable. But now we must talk about one of my favorite silly episodes, Turnabout. In this one, Man-at-Arms attaches a belt to Skeletor that electrocutes him every time he has an evil thought.
Destroy them!
It's like the V-chip from the South Park movie.
Eradicate them! I ought to...
Send it begging
The best part is that eventually he tries to act nice so he doesn't get shocked.
Tommy, are you doing something different with your nails? The color is very becoming.
I guess that's the big difference between this Skeletor and the Filmation Skeletor. Filmation Skeletor would rather fry his brains out than be nice.
You think that if you pretend to be nice, it won't weaken you?
Pretend? Who's pretending? I am nice.
I am not nice.
Now, this is going to sound kind of weird, but some of the visuals and animation don't hold up that well. I realize what that sounds like compared to the Filmation cartoon, but hear me out. For the most part, it still looks good, but there are times where the animation starts to show its age. There's also this thing that happens when several characters are standing together, some of them get grayed out for some reason. I guess it's to indicate that they're in the background, but it feels distracting and unnecessary. Also, I know He-Man is a toy line, and I did like the designs in this show, but there were times where things would show up that were blatantly meant to be a toy. And this might be a bit of a nitpick, but I always felt the sword was a little over-designed. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks cool and all, but it just always felt like a bit much, you know? I think I still prefer the original one. It's simple, but iconic. Another very noticeable change was that Cringer no longer talks. He's fine like this, but I feel like he loses a lot of personality without having a voice. I also miss the complete attitude flip he does when he turns into Battle Cat. Though the worst thing about this show is it ended too soon. It was pretty obvious that things were set up for later episodes, like alluding to the return of Hordak, but they also expanded more on Teela being the sorceress's daughter. And just like in Filmation, they set up the fact that one day she'll take her place as Guardian of Grayskull and the sorceress's pain for not being able to tell her. Although the show goes into one thing that Filmation didn't. Her father. Yeah, remember Man-at-Arms is her adopted father. We never learn anything about her real father. Do you want to know who her father is? It was going to be Fisto. Yeah, I didn't see that coming, did you? Though they don't actually say it outright, it's very heavily implied. During a flashback, they show the sorceress tending to an injured soldier who lost his memories. Later in the series, we meet Fisto and they establish he was a soldier who seemingly deserted his battle but has no memory of what happened. His arm was injured, which is why it was so huge, and they reveal Fisto and Man-at-Arms are brothers. Still giving Man-at-Arms a connection to Teela because that would make him not just her adopted father, but her uncle as well. The thing is, toward the end of the show, we saw Teela and Fisto together a lot, clearly setting up for a big reveal that he's her father, but sadly it never happened. The show did have a decent finale with He-Man and Zodak having a final showdown with the Snakemen, but it's a shame the show had to come to an end before they could follow up on a lot of things they set up. So why did the show end? Well, that seems to depend on who you ask. I've heard a lot of different reasons for the cancellation. Some say it was Cartoon Network's poor handling of their schedule, and knowing them, that's a strong possibility. It could have been poor toy sales, which can be a death sentence for a TV show. I definitely don't remember them being advertised very well. Though some involved with the show believed it couldn't connect with kids at the time, saying they found He-Man, a large muscle man in a furry Speedo, to be silly. I mean, yeah, it kind of is. But while it is easy to joke about that kind of thing, kids in the 80s loved He-Man. He was seen as a hero and a role model, no different from someone like Superman. I really can't think of any reason why kids in the 2000s would feel any different. Though I did hear that there was some market research done at the time that said some kids didn't really take to his outfit very well, which is probably why some of the outfits he changes into in the show have pants, and how some versions of He-Man later on would have pants also. But again, I really can't see why this would be a reason kids wouldn't connect to the character. Though the popular belief is that the show didn't really know who to cater to. Older fans loved it for sure, and while I'm sure there were plenty of younger fans at the time that liked it, I guess it didn't quite reach out to enough of them. I'm a firm believer that anyone is allowed to like whatever they want, regardless if it's supposed to be for them or not, but I guess having a clear indication of who your show is directed at is necessary at times. Well, regardless of the reason, it is a shame because the 2002 Masters of the Universe show is a prime example of what a good reboot should be. It drew directly from the source material, it made changes and updates only when necessary, and didn't compromise anything that people liked about the original in the first place. And as a fan of the original myself, seeing all the expanded lore made that silly cartoon I watched as a kid feel more like a complete story. I really wish we had gotten more, especially learning about the big plans they had for moving forward, like the Horde returning, and more conflict with Skeletor and the Snakemen, and Teela was going to finally take her place as the new sorceress. Though despite the abrupt ending, it seems the show eventually got the recognition it deserves among the fans, and is often regarded as the best adaptation of Masters of the Universe. I'm glad I could finally end this retrospective that has gone on for way too long, and I know we've gotten some new installments of Masters of the Universe since, with who knows how many more coming. Maybe I'll talk about them some other time, but for now, I think I'm done. Well, that's it. The Masters of the Universe retrospective is finally over. I have had so many delays getting this thing out that I was really worried something bad was going to happen. But thankfully, nothing happened. Ah, jeez.
It is I, Skeletor, a completely original character!
Seriously, a villain interrupting an internet review? What is this, 2010? Hey pal, if you're looking for Linkari, you got the wrong house.
Fool! I've traveled the universe to... What do you call this realm?
Florida.
Ugh, it's awful here, I hate it.
Yeah, we all do. What do you want?
Oh, I've traveled the universe to seek a champion of good!
Uh-huh.
As the greatest source of evil, I've come to defeat it!
Yeah, that's fascinating.
We must now engage in combat for the fate of... Are you on your phone? Quit checking X and pay attention, this is serious!
It's Twitter, and I'm on Blue Sky now. Listen, I've got a lot to do today, so can you sum up why you're here in one sentence?
Fight me or I destroy your dumb internet show.
Fine, I'll fight you if it'll shut you up and get you out of my house. Oh, jeez!
What was that? You threw your sword? Who throws a sword?
I don't know, I thought it would, like, trip you up all comedic-like or something.
It's a sword! Oh,
jeez, that looks bad. Do you want me to drive you to the hospital or something?
No, it's fine. I'll just go walk it off. I'll be okay. Oh.
Huh. Oh, hey, were you the one making all that noise in the Fluffy Dogs review?
What? No.
I'm sure I'll find out eventually.
Yeah, it is I, Skeletor, a completely original character. Yeah. I may have to do this without the mask on. Yeah, it is I, Skeletor, a completely original character. Yeah.
Okay, that's probably going to sound a lot better. Foley. Ow. Let's try that again with something less ear-retching. Still ear-retching, but it's fine.